So before we start, we must first know what is a company. So a company is a natural legal organization founded by an association or group of individuals to work together to achieve a shared goals. So a corporation, partnership, association, or formalized collection of people can all be considered as companies. Section 2 Clause 1 of Companies Act 2016 define the company as company incorporated under this act or under any corresponding previous written law, meaning that a company is a body, corporate, or an incorporated business organization that registered under the Companies Act. So in Malaysia, any companies that complies with the Companies Act 2016 is a local company. The statute that governs the company law in Malaysia is Companies Act 2016. So this Company Act is the most significant piece of legislation because it regulates the creation, operation and management of business in corporate law in Malaysia. So this document also specifies the tax, accounting and audit requirement. There is a separate section in the Companies Act that is specified for foreign firms that operates in Malaysia. Section 613 of Companies Act 2016 has given the power to the Minister in charge, which is Minister of Domestic Trade, Cooperative and Consumerism, to make the regulation to give effect to the Act. So pursuant to this power, the Minister has made the Companies Regulation 2017, Companies Amendment Regulation 2018 and other regulation regarding to the companies. In Malaysia, the Registrar of Companies and the Registrar of Enterprise merged to establish SSM, which is a statutory organization that oversees both companies and businesses. SSM is an agency functioning under the Ministry of Domestic Trade and Consumer Affairs that begins its operation on April 16, 2002. SSM's primary function is to operate as an organization for the incorporation and registration of firms, as well as to provide the company and business information to the general public. As a leading body for the business and enhancement of the corporate governance, SSM has carried out its responsibility to ensure compliance with the corporate and business registration through the extensive enforcement and monitoring efforts in order to preserve the positive developments in the corporation and commercial sectors of the country.
To be registered under SSM, there are two types of local companies that should be known to business owners, namely private company and public company. The basic requirements to incorporate a private company can be seen in Section 42 of Companies Act, wherein the company must be a company limited by shares and having not more than 50 shareholders. Under the same section, a private company is required to restrict the right to transfer its shares, limit members to 50, prohibit any invitation to the public to subscribe for any shares in or debentures of the company, as well as prohibit any invitation to the public to deposit money with the company. In cases the company fails to adhere to these restrictions, the registrar is required to serve a notice on the company that the company ceases to be a private company. Following the notice given, the company is deemed to be a public company from the date specified in the notice. To incorporate a private company, SSM also requires that there should be at least one director who already resides in Malaysia by having a principal place of residence in Malaysia and minimum of one promoter. By virtue of Section 2, Subsection 1 on Companies Act, a public company is defined as a company other than a private company, meaning that the company does not comply with the restrictions of the private company. The requirement set up by SSM is that a business should have at least two directors who already reside in Malaysia by having a principal place of residence in Malaysia and a minimum of one promoter. There are significant differences between these two classifications of companies, whereby in comparison to public companies, a private limited company structure is more suitable for small businesses and family organizations. The differences can be seen in the aspect of raising funds, its members, and director. So unlike private companies, public companies are allowed to raise capital by inviting the public to subscribe for its shares and debentures with the condition that it must issue a prospectus before the allotment of shares. As regard to members, while a private company's membership is restricted to a maximum of 50 persons, a public company is not so limited. And pertaining to directors, as mentioned earlier, the minimum number of directors needed is 1 for a private company and 2 for a public company.
Now, I am going to explain the procedure of incorporating a company. First of all, in naming the company, one should follow the company naming guidelines published by the Companies Commissions of Malaysia to increase the likelihood of company name approval during the company incorporation process. There are also requirements of a company name provided under the Companies Act. Firstly, the promoter must first apply to the registrar of the company to confirm the availability of a proposed name before the super form can be submitted. The criteria of the company name that can be used is that it is not undesirable or unacceptable. It will be considered as undesirable or unacceptable if it contains words of an obscene nature, contrary to public policy, likely to offend any specific part of a community or any religion, or names that are misleading in terms of a company's identity, nature, aims, or purpose. Next, the name cannot be identical to an existing company, corporation, or business. It must not be identical to a name that is being reserved under the Companies Act. Also, it must not be a name of a kind that the minister has directed the registrar not to accept for registration. At the end of a company names, it must have the words of Berhad for public company, Sendirian Berhad for private company, and Sendirian for unlimited company. Additionally, these are the guidelines that must be followed when deciding on a name. Now, we have come to the part of the form to register the company. To establish a company, one must use the application for registration, more commonly known as the super form. In order to fill in the details of the super form, you would need the purpose name of the company, type of company, whether public or private, business nature and description, for instance, cleaning and laundry service company, address of the registered office of the proposed company, details of the member, directors and secretary of the company, such as name, identification, nationality, and main residence. Lastly, price per share, class of share, and number of shares per shareholder. Moving on, upon compliance of the procedure and payment of the appropriate fee for the company incorporation, SSM will inform the person who submitted the application for registration of a company through an email. The notice is known as the Notice of Registration. The notice of the registration for SSM is the conclusive evidence that the company is successfully incorporated. Next, the certificate of incorporation will be issued by Suruhanjaya Syarikat Malaysia (SSM) upon compliance with the incorporation procedure and submission of the complete incorporation documents. This certificate plays a part in proving the existence of the company. You might be wondering, what is the effect of incorporating your company? So, the company is considered incorporated from the date stated in the notice, meaning that the life of the company starts from the date specified in the notice of registration that is received through email. Last but not least, publication of company name. It is an obligation to display both registered name and company registration number at the company registered office and every place where the company business is carried on, and also every place where the company books are kept. In addition, the company is required to disclose its registered name and company registration number in the company business correspondence and documentation, including the company website.
Now, let's talk about the characteristic of a company. Do you know when you created a company, you and your company are identified as two different entities? Yes, this is mentioned in Section 20 of the Companies Act, where law recognizes your company as another entity or another corporate person on itself. Your company will have their own name and have unlimited liability, where your company can sue or be sued and also handle the property matters on its own name. Now, let's look at the examples of case Solomon. This is a case where Solomon is the owner of the company. While his company is not doing well, his wife and another person known as Brodrip has lent some money to the company. However, Brodrip did not receive his pay, so he sued the company. The company only has enough money to pay Brodrip alone, but there are also other companies, including Solomon. At previous courts, the court decided that Solomon have to be responsible and compensate the company. But then, the House of Lords decided that Solomon do not have to, as he is also entitled as a creditor. Solomon and the company are two different entities, and therefore, the company have the obligation to pay the creditors, including Solomon. Next, a company will also have perpetual succession. What does it mean by perpetual succession? It means that the company's life does not depend on the lifespan of the members. If the director dies, the company will continue. To illustrate more clearly, there is a case where a husband and wife are the only directors of a company and they both die in a car crash. However, the company cannot appoint a new director without the permission of the previous one. Therefore, the court allowed personal agent of the deceased to appoint a new director. So you can see here, the company of the husband and wife did not end just because they are dead. As people say, the life of the living must go on, and here, company life must go on even without the previous directors.
You know what? We can actually benefit from a company. Anything that we do, good or bad, the company will cover for us.
Now, hold back, Mimi. You missed one important trait. Even though members are not responsible for the company's liability, the authority may inspect what you did in the company. And if you are being caught, you will be held responsible for what you did to the company.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this is the principle of lifting the corporate veil, an exception to the separate legal entity.
Oh, I see.
For illustration, there's this one case where the director of Bank Bumiputera illegally made a secret profit. To avoid being caught, he transferred all the money to a company, Aspatra. When the authority found out about the secret profit, the director said that only the company is wrong, and as a member, he is separated from the company. However, the court did the corporate veil and found that the director is the one who transferred all the money to Aspatra. Hence, both the director and the company are held liable. They are no longer separated. Instead, they are regarded as one. Now, let us look at the last characteristic of company. Company has limited liability. The liability of a company may be limited either by shares or guarantee, depends on what type of company it is. For a company limited by guarantee, the shareholder's liability is limited to the amount of guarantee written in the memorandum, and this amount is only due if the company closed down. While for a company limited by shares, the liability of the member is limited to their unpaid money or their shares.